joining us today. I'm Angela Smith, the Executive Director of Cornerstone Community Development Corporation, which is the lead agency for Southland Recovery Coalition, better known as SRC. SRC is proud to present today's conversation centered around understanding and breaking down barriers as relates to recovery efforts for young adults in our communities. This think and thought conversation is important as we have a great opportunity to better understand their feelings and challenges. The better we understand, the better we can assist and serve in our efforts to bring all age groups together with the recovery process. Thank you, Zion and Kwan, for taking the time to share your feelings, thoughts, and observations. And now we'll turn the program over to Yvonne Orr, an SRC partner.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And it's a pleasure to be joined by two fine gentlemen. I'd like to introduce the Southland Recovery Coalition's 2023 Recovery Champion, Zion Richardson, and he will introduce the next panelist.
For sure. Thank you for the introduction. As it was mentioned, my name is Zion Richardson, and I'm really excited for the presentation that we have today. It's going to be an open forum type of discussion just centered around youth mental health, recovery, and everything in between. So without further ado, I'll be introducing my co-host or my co-panelist, Jaquan Sales Irving, and I'll allow him to give some background on himself as well.
Hey everybody, how you doing? My name is Jaquan Sales Irving, Chicago born and raised, South Side. Graduated from Whitney Young High School, then attended Morehouse College and majored in film, and currently working at Disney under the Hulu's originals and unscripted department.
Sounds great. So I feel like we can get straight into it. I wanted to start by kind of having a discussion breaking down the barriers that Black men face, and it's about the different stereotypes and what we face as Black men in America. So, for example, I feel like we don't talk enough about mental health for Black men. So, I wanted to kind of start by asking you, Jaquan, how would you describe mental health coming up as a Black man, and also how would you describe the influence that has had on your life?
Mental health is a huge thing, I feel, especially for Black men coming up, because I feel like you're not always put into a position to express yourself. It's always be strong, don't cry, suck it up. And that can kind of, you know, put a void in a man's chest. You're not able to express yourself. And that's where you see men doing kind of outrageous things, or you see Black men going through a certain type of plights because they aren't able to like relieve themselves of, kind of the trauma that they've experienced, whether that being, losing a friend, losing a family member, you know, um, an idol of yours going away for some time. Uh, and personally, I know I grew up in a separated family household, so I know that hurt me tremendously. Great co-parents though, but it's certain things that we see growing up that have a huge effect on how we become.
I definitely agree. And I feel like just like even looking at it from a bird's eye perspective, when we're born, we're young, and there's a certain transitionary period where we go from adorable or cute, whether that's when we're 7, 8, or 9 or 10 years old, to being looked at as a threat almost immediately. So we look at cases like Tamir Rice or several other cases where just whether it's Trayvon Martin or whoever else, we're Black men doing everyday life things, but we're kind of not afforded the privilege of being able to be young or teenagers even. I think like in my case, I realized like as a teenager, even a high schooler, with my first interactions with the police, that even though I may have felt like a young adult or even a little kid at times, that's not the way that the world is always going to perceive me. So just being able to come to terms with that, and also figuring out how to navigate the world in that sense. And that also leads me into our next point, just being how to cope with this and how to basically establish a new normal. Because I feel like, especially within our community, the African American community, when we're faced with these harsh realities and these difficult environments to navigate, we kind of find our peers or certain people within our communities looking for new ways to cope, whether that is drugs or violence, or even um, just acting out against their parents, like whatever the case may be, disobedience, um, resenting authority, a lot of different ways that we see this happen. So I wanted to get your opinion to see if you've seen that with anybody that you've interacted with coming up, and also how have you found a way to avoid those almost modern day traps?
Definitely have friends overdose. Definitely have friends just do the wrong thing to let out, how they feel. And it's not a great thing to experience. However, I feel like I've been able to overcome those type of issues by one, having a solid group of people around me. And Zion, I can say that you are one of those significant people in my life. Uh, Being able to talk through how you feel, because I feel like that's another thing that we face as an issue, is not being able to elaborate and explain how we actually feel and put our feelings into words for people to understand and comprehend. Because if you don't have, if you can't speak on it, then you're just going to react on it, you know, physically, whether that be hurting somebody else or hurting yourself. At the end of the day, you're just hurting everybody. And I really feel like you need somebody to talk to. You need a rock, uh, and you need to be able to have some type of humility and be able to, like, put your barriers down and let people into your life. And that's when I say you need a solid group of people around you, because they will understand, they will respect where you come from. This isn't a laughing at you type of moment or scenario. This is, you come to somebody for help.
Definitely, definitely. And I also feel like you made a lot of great points there. I wanted to ask, do you have 3 to 5 tips that you would give youth who are struggling to find ways to navigate just like mental health struggles, or even making sure they're walking down the right path?
Honestly, I don't want it to sound like corny or anything, but I feel like meditation is definitely a key thing that people should practice. Whether it be for 5 to 10 to 15 minutes, if you can just sit down, relax, and breathe and clear your mind, I think that is it'll propose and provide some type of clarity for your, future decision making. Um, that's one thing for sure. And I also feel like find something to do, a hobby. um it doesn't always have to be video games. It doesn't always have to be, you know whatever. But if it's something that has, value, and that's building your character and your motivation and your skill set, it could be basketball. That could be some way, you relieve some stress. um but I think finding something to keep yourself busy and not on the negative.
Definitely. That's a great point. And I was going to say, additionally, along with meditating, journaling is another great one as well. I know that you and I have talked a lot about journaling just because, in my case, it's helped me figure out my mental quarrels, and also just figuring out how to, get my thoughts on the paper and express myself. And that goes back to having a medium to really speak on it. As you said, if you can't speak on it, you can't act on it, or you will react on it. And outside of journaling, I will also resonate with what you said in terms of having a solid crew or crowd around you. They say um, you are the sum of your 9 to 10 closest friends. So if you hang around 10 robbers, it's 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 like you're going to be leaning towards a certain way. If you hang around 10 scholars, it goes the same way. So that's another thing. And then finally, I would say having a vision or a goal, or really just like a idea of where you want to see yourself in the future, so you have something to work towards. A lot of young adults, I've heard they may have said something like, I never thought about where I would be at 25, because a lot of us die at age 21 or younger, things of that nature. So it's like when we're not envisioning where we want to be at 30, 40, 50, then we're kind of left to go with the flow. And sometimes going with the flow is good, but other times going with the flow can be very detrimental, because it kind of puts us in a corner that we wouldn't like. And then additionally, I feel like you made some great points, and I hope that our viewers are able to take a lot of value from that. I wanted to ask, what do you do to take the edge off when a lot of people around us are taking drugs or falling into alcoholism, or really just having unhealthy habits that aren't conducive to where we want to be?
No, definitely. I'll be honest. I like to have fun, when it's the weekend, hang with some buddies, grab some brews or whatever the case may be, of course. Um, and I don't know, but I feel like it plays a part into work hard, play hard. You know, I know jobs can be stressful, life is stressful. I mean, they're talking about upcoming recession, like nothing's sweet right now. For lack of a better word, but I feel like what I do is I personally, Zion, I might go to your house and chill with you. We might play 2K, or I might just take a nap. Um, I feel like I don't try to break my back in terms of things to I don't I only control what I can control. And I think I realize that. I don't want myself to be wrapped up into something. I don't want to have too much focus on something that I know that's not going to reciprocate that type of energy to me too. So I think that I kind of, and honestly, I don't think I have the perfect way of, taking the edge off myself or anything like that. But I think just, read a book, hang with some friends, have some fun. Zion, I just got a puppy. So, that's my life right now. That's my kid. Uh, so those things kind of play a part into making my life more relaxed and calm.
Yeah.
Uh, because I don't know, I just not stay busy, but stay busy for the right things that also like love what you do. That's another thing too. Uh, I love what I do. I love who I'm around, so therefore it's not always as stressful as things may be.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and especially I'm an avid reader, so when you said read a book, that kind of it made my lights light up because that's the number one thing I was going to say. Um, Really, when all throughout when I was in school, for background, I went to Whitney Young for high school. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison for college. Currently debating on whether I want to get my MBA or not. All throughout school, I was really like, I don't like books. They're boring. I associated reading with textbooks, and that was kind of a negative association because sometimes a lot of our classes we're doing them to get through them, but every class is not going to be passing the line. So once I graduated, that was my first time actually realizing, hey, these books don't have to be boring or they don't have to be. I can read anything that I want to read, and there's a lot of hidden knowledge in there. Sometimes they say if you want to hide something from Black people, put it in a book, which is a crazy cliche, but it makes a little bit of sense because I know that a lot of people around me don't read as often as we should. So that's a great thing that you mentioned. And then additionally, I would say, like you said, whether it's hanging out with friends or really challenging yourself to find a hobby, there's a lot of different ways that we can take the edge off. Sometimes we can find fun in things that wouldn't typically be fun. For me, that's been working out. I just picked up boxing, which has been a very fun habit, and I find a lot of excitement in pushing myself to the next level, whether that's running an extra mile, jumping rope for an extra 10 minutes, or even, just trying new things. There's a plethora of different things out there for us to try, and I feel like especially within our community, we don't try things as often as we should. For example, I know a lot of people that have never left their neighborhood, that have never been downtown, let alone have never left Chicago. And that leads me to another fun thing that we can do. Sometimes it might be best to just stack up and travel somewhere. I know that in my case, I had my first experience out of the country in high school. Um, Initially, my freshman year, before my freshman year of high school, I went to Mexico because that's where my grandma used to live. And then later down the line, the summer after my junior year, I studied abroad in Ghana through a program called AFS, which is a great program for high school students. In the midst of all of that, I feel my travel experiences were one of the most integral experiences at that age because they kind of allowed me to evolve and grow as a man. And I know that, like, since we're both from inner city Chicago, we've seen all of the good, the bad, the ugly, and we've really dodged a lot of different obstacles, like raindrops almost. I have peers that have overdosed, or I have peers that have, just been given two tough decisions, and sometimes we make the wrong decision in the moment. There's nothing wrong with that, but we do want to be able to make the best decision possible with what we have. So I for one, I don't have any experience with drug addiction, but I know a lot of people our age do, and even some folks who are younger, whether it's weed, promethazine, codeine, Molly, fentanyl, the list goes on. There's a lot of different things, cocaine, and several other drugs. I wanted to kind of get your perspective. Um, What advice would you have for someone who's trying to avoid those obstacles, especially when it's being thrown at them? And I know that we're not experts, but how would you advise someone to let go of addiction if they already started doing those types of drugs?
It might seem like a cookie cutter answer, especially just since I've never been put in a situation like that or gone through it. But I would say you have to get through it to get to it, as my mom would say, and you gotta get through it to get to it, and get to it to get through it. It's all about persistence and optimism. And if that's what you want at the end of the day, then you can have that. Uh, I did see a comment from Tyrone Burns who talks about uh, young men need more after school activities, and I wholeheartedly agree. And I think that's the case where the community needs to step in because it takes a village to raise a child.
Always,
And when these kids are looking up to rappers and all these musicians who are talking about this stuff that's filling their mind with this kind of influence, they're not looking at and that's the case I was talking about. When we were talking about the plight of a black man growing up, not being able to express themselves, always have to be hard and tough. And some of their fathers might be incarcerated or dead. And you know, it becomes a cycle of the blind leading the blind.
for sure,
And with that being blind and not understanding what's going on around you, only being focused on uh quick cash or you know drugs, it's like it leads to a certain sense of apathy and not caring. And I think, to respond to you, Tyrone, uh, this is where we need to really focus on the politics of Chicago. We know it's a corrupt city. We know, things can be better. That has to be worked on, in the structure of it all. And I think that, we have to vote for the right politicians, the right, senators, the right governors that will, fight for, these after school programs. Because, it was a point in time where CPS schools still are being shut down, and inner city children, have nowhere to go, or they have to travel far. And from depending on their background, they're going into neighborhoods that their own neighborhood possibly might not get along with. Therefore, causing some type of conflict for them. So I really do think we need to get the right people in office that will actually devote and be committed and have conviction towards putting, a lot of efforts into after school programs. I wholeheartedly agree.
for sure. And we want to thank you, Tyrone, for joining, as well as everyone else who's watching across the different platforms, whether it be Facebook, YouTube, so on and so forth. And Quan, you made a great point because it does start with our youth having something to do. I feel like another factor within that is paying it forward. I know that there were a lot of different resources that were poured into me when I was coming up, whether I was in high school doing different college readiness programs or even after school programs. It could be Chicago Park District, CPS, whatever the case may be. How do you pay it forward? And additionally, what would you say to the children who we see that don't have anything to do, and it's leading to them doing these riots or causing a lot of mayhem downtown? If you kept up with that as well.
That's just kids. Kids will be kids, one. But I think it's getting a part of it is like social media. I feel social media, kids not having anything to do, and parents letting their kids do anything they want to do. Because I mean, not to say like we're old or anything, but when we were coming up, Zion, we weren't going downtown causing any riots or like stepping on cars causing mayhem.
Not
It
at
was
all.
more so, hey bro, you want to grab a bite to eat after class, or you're just trying to kick it after school. um you
We
know
might be silent in the car.
nothing major, nothing crazy at all. Yeah, I honestly just think these kids' heads aren't in the right place, and I think they're trying to. This is obviously like this goes back to the blind leading the blind. They think what they're doing is cool and cute, but in reality, this isn't. This is this is vandalism.
Yeah,
Is and
a
it's
lot.
bad, and is really painting a bad picture for our community because this is the youth, and it's like
It's the future.
this is the future. We don't need this, especially since like we've been we've stuck together as a community so long, trying to, combat police brutality and all these other, forces that are against us. And here we are, the same people that we're fighting for, the youth, are, tearing, the progress apart.
Yeah,
And it doesn't make sense. And it's just like, it just doesn't make sense. I would like your stance on things, because I'm very curious.
for sure. And I see also in the comments, we have Michelle who mentioned that this is the same situation that's happening in Detroit. And we wanted to thank her for joining as well. And honestly, I wanted to resonate with everything that you said, but also just like give my own opinion. I think that, like, yes, it's the blind leading the blind. There's a lot of confusion right now. There's I feel like every different age group needs a solidified leader that can take us to the right direction. So if we ask our parents, they may have say, oh, so and so, this is the person that all the kids looked up to, or this is the person that we looked up to when we were in our 20s, whatever the case may be. Right now, if it seems like the youth are looking for a leader, and nobody knows what to do or where to go, because no one's being asked the right questions. For one, I would say it starts with the right questions being asked. So we might just start by asking our youth around us, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? We hear that a lot. What's a career that excites you that you don't know anybody else that's doing it? And maybe we might be able to connect them, like, oh, you want to be an anesthesiologist? I know someone who's doing that right now. And the more they see Black men, Black women in these careers that seem like we only see them in movies, the more they might start to think in different ways. Like, oh, I never thought about going to med school, but I think I might be able to do it, because you can, it does go back into resources, for one, because we look at different schools, we compare our schools to those of other ethnicities. It's not the same resources at all. Some schools, they might have students that are like, oh, like, I was in the robotics program. And then if we look at schools that are in these underfunded neighborhoods, they don't have a robotics program. The only interaction they're getting with robotics might be on YouTube. So whenever we do find success, I do believe that it starts with us going back and giving our old schools or our old neighborhoods the resources that we wish we had. Because the same way I was like, when I was 17, 15, whatever the case may be, and I felt like, wow, like, I wish there was somebody who could tell me the right place to go or the right things to do. There's a kid right now that's really looking for a leader like you and me, or even someone else, just to be like, hey, I was in your shoes before. And it's not lame to go to college. It's not lame to say no to drugs. And it's become such a cliche that the connotation that comes with it, people just associate it with being corny. But in reality, a lot of your favorite people or your most successful people, they are making the right choices. And it's not lame to make the right choices. We look at 50 Cent, for example. We know he's had a troubled and battered past, but at the same time, he mentioned in his book, I would suggest to read it if you haven't, he said he doesn't drink and he doesn't smoke. And there's a lot of different rappers who rely on weed and alcohol to make their best lyrics. He's like, well, what if Jay-Z comes into the studio and he's like, I want you to write a verse right now. And you like, oh, I can't do it because I'm not high. Now you hustling backwards, you stopping your bag, you stopping your money, and it's not a good thing for anybody on either side. But that brought me to my next point. I wanted to kind of talk more about the sense that Black males have, just in terms of being tough, tough it out. Like, it starts at a very young age. We might have a situation where a little boy falls off the swing and a little girl falls off the swing, and the little girl's allowed to cry, but the little boy isn't. The little boy has to be tough, and so on and so forth. And then as we get older, we internalize this tough mentality, and it leads to us having a lack of emotional intelligence, I would argue. And at least in my case, I've had to kind of put a lot of the stereotypes to the side and learn how to refine my own emotional intelligence through research, doing different books, whether it's The Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown, or even Attached, which is another great book about attachment styles, and really learning, okay, where's the perfect balance between understanding and expressing my emotions, but also I'm not, like you mentioned, I'm not sweet. I'm not like, it's like, I'm not a little girl for saying how I feel at the end of the day. I'm not a sissy or whatever term you want to use. How do you find yourself navigating that intricate balance between being a strong, tough man, but also, not closing off your heart and being able to respect and feel your emotions.
Definitely. I think you have to know who you are. You have to, dibble and dabble. You might be in this social group this day, might be another social group tomorrow. But as long as you're actually finding your inner peace and who you are, you'll be able to understand your emotions better. Because I know back then when I was younger, especially, I not old at all, not old, I say it's so funny, but I would try to hold in a lot, and then when a moment where like one situation might come about, and it'll be that one, you know, that one thing that just breaks the camel's back, and I would just be bursting into tears, and I just realized I'm just trying to figure out, this is me just trying to sustain all of this pressure that I shouldn't be holding in, because you start holding grudges, you start having nasty attitudes towards people, and eventually just become disliked. And I really realized just having, somebody to talk to. You really just need somebody. And if you don't have somebody to talk to, please write about it. That's why diaries were a thing. That's why writing was created. And if you aren't able to express yourself in any shape or form, it's just going to be bottled up inside of you. And you never know what you're holding back inside might be a next $1 million idea. Um, if you don't have anybody to talk to or bounce things, backing off of, then, it's just like, it's locked in the chamber. You might as well just put it in the vault, throw it in the ocean, walk away. And an analogy is that's pretty much how your heart is feeling at the same time, because you're not being able to like express yourself. You're in a sunken type of place. Um,
I definitely agree. And you made great points, just like, being able to recognize how we feel and act on it versus, leaving it in the vault and never acting on it. They say the difference between the man who finds success and the man who doesn't is one of them actually does it and one of them only thinks about it. And I also wanted to clarify and make sure I was being clear. All of the terms that I listed are not acceptable, and we're definitely not advocates for any of those terms. We have a lot of respect for all of our different communities, but these terms that are outdated, we do still see them being used, and we would like for them to stop being used in the future. So I just wanted to be clear that we're on the side that rebukes all of these terms, whatever term it may be, because at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with expressing yourself or your emotions. And I've dealt with the same thing, a lot of times, us being men who were raised from a strong family and also men who look to be the providers of our own families one day. We kind of deal with this weight on our shoulders mentality. We're consistently looking to do more, and we're pushing ourselves to the next level. We rarely ask for help, and we're always looking to help. We have big hearts, big minds, and we're looking to basically maximize our impact. They say, like, you show him, you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. You teach him how to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. And we're looking to teach everyone else around us how to fish while also simultaneously fishing on our own. And it can tend to be a lot. I like the term that you use, the straw that broke the camel's back, because that's really what it is. I've experienced that as well. And I feel like initially when I was younger, it reminds me of a Music Soul Child song. He said, my mama told me that the definition of a man is to never cry, work till you die, always provide. And it sounds crazy when you say the lyrics out loud, but a lot of people do feel that internally because that's all we know. We rarely have conversations like this, and if we do, we don't feel comfortable even being vulnerable. I feel like I would argue that there's strength in vulnerability, and a lot of us actually have to kind of become more comfortable being vulnerable. So I also wanted to get your perspective and kind of ask you on how is losing your peers due to overdoses or suicide or even just having this, how has that impacted you, and how do you navigate?
it puts you in a state of like limbo, honestly. You can't believe it at first. Like, him, not him, her, never. Because I feel like it's people wake up, and as sad as they may be, I say I even do this sometimes. I might be tired from the night before, or just in general, but I still put a smile on my face. But like, it's people that have even worse days than I did. And this is where you have to count your blessings, because you know, things may be hard for you now, but you never know what another person is going through. And Mike Epps said this, and not to go away from the topic, but if you dropped all your problems right now, if God told everybody to drop their problems right now, and you pick up a problem, you never know if it could be better or worse. You know, so you just might as well be grateful for what you have, where you at right now, and just put your best foot forward and strive and keep striving.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to, and this is why I promote to other people is reach out. You know what I'm saying? If somebody crossed your mind, they didn't cross your mind for no reason. If something that you saw reminded you of somebody, just check in and say hey, because you never know if that hey can actually like save their life. And just take initiative. You know, just they might not want to talk, or you might not want to talk. You know, it doesn't have to be a quick conversation. It can be a text message, it can be a voicemail, but just let them know that you're in their corner, you know. And because when we were in college, you know, and we weren't seeing each other every day, but come Saturday or Sunday, I'll FaceTime you, you'll FaceTime me, just check in, you know, and it'd be that type of thing.
Yeah.
And we've had some share losses too, like from high school, you know, and I feel like I'm always left with in my chest, like a feeling that what could I have done better, you know, to prevent this issue. And, you know, just going forward, like you learn from it, you know, and you reach out to more people and you make sure they're straight, you know, but you just got to tell them, keep their head high and just, you know, focus on what's necessary. Cause at the end of the day, there's no point of putting imaginary problems on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
And just control what you can control and focus on the now.
I definitely agree. And you made a lot of great points, you know, especially I feel like there's two sides of the coin as well, because there's always that feeling of what could I have done better? But then it's also like I know, like in my case, like I've had people very close to me just struggling with suicide, and I feel like it's my sole responsibility to save their lives. So then that's another thing that we have to make sure we're properly navigating, because, you know, um, I like to say you can lead someone to water, but you can't force them to drink it. A lot of times people have to make that decision for themselves. Like, I want to get help. I want to get out of this funk that I'm feeling. I've had a lot of people close to me that have like dealt with adversity in different ways, and even myself, I've had a lot of adversity that I didn't expect or anticipate to have to deal with. But, you know, a lot of things in life, like that's the thing about life. If we could decide when bad things happen to us, then it wouldn't even be life for real. You know, a lot of times bad things happen at the worst time, but we can't do anything but allow these situations to make us and not break us. That's why they're called make or break situations. And I think that my experience with a lot of people around me, just, you know, navigating suicidal thoughts and tendencies, and really struggling with their mental health overall, and really being in that fire, if you will, has allowed me to gain a better grasp and understanding of what mental health is really all about, and really healthy ways to cope with a lot of the things that we deal with. I know that I feel like there have been multiple times when people have come to me feeling whatever devastation or depression, and really struggling with those suicidal tendencies. And initially, I might feel like it's my responsibility to, you know, take this suicidal feeling out of them. But then at the same time, you know, we're not trained professionals, so a lot of times the best thing that we can do is send them to those right trained professionals. Hey, I feel where you're coming from. I think that you might benefit from therapy. Or, hey, I feel where you're coming from. Let's go talk to a professional about this, and I'll go with you to sign up for that. You know, just giving them that positive support when we can. Outside of that, I see that we have a couple of comments in the chat as well. So I want to thank everyone for joining. And I like a lot of the hashtags that I've been seeing. One of the hashtags says check in. That's always a good one. Never give up. Act now. Express yourself. Express your emotions. These are all great podcasts. These are all great hashtags, because they're kind of things that we don't take a lot of time to do. I feel like a simple check-in with whatever friend you have, whether you're saying, hey bro, you just crossed my mind, are you good? Like, no, are you really good for real? Just simple things like that can go a long way. We have a new joiner. I wanted to see if we have anything that Miss Orr wanted to say.
No, I was just going to close us out after you all make your closing statements. make
For
a
sure.
couple of announcements, of course.
Definitely. We want to thank everyone for joining, and I hope everyone's been keeping up with the comments as well, because we have a lot of great material in here. One book that was shouted out, Cry Like a Man by Jason Wilson. I actually have that book on my reading list, so I'm looking forward to reading that. I'll hopefully have it done by the next live, and we'll be able to speak on that as well. But we want to thank everyone for joining. Also, thank everyone for the productive comments as well.
Well, I will say that this has been a wonderful, it's our version of a Snapchat at lunchtime. We will be hosting more live conversations with a particular focus on our theme, which is breaking down barriers. This lunchtime conversation has been brought to you by the Southland Recovery Coalition, as well as Cornerstone Community Development Corporation. We want to virtually thank our other panelist that was unable to join and send him get well wishes to Lamont Wallace. And then we want to let you know that where there are few, there are many and mighty. So please feel free to share this. You can stream it again and again and again from any of the platforms on YouTube as well as Facebook. You can find us on Facebook at Southland Recovery Coalition. You can find us on YouTube at Your Life, that's YORR Life. And we certainly hope that you will join us again. A special thanks to our two gentlemen. We look forward to having this conversation again in the future. And we hope to bring other panelists your way to have some thought-provoking, food for thought conversations that really give us a different perspective on what millennials are really thinking about. We hope that you enjoyed the rest of your weekend and have a wonderfully safe day. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.